Love makes you vulnerable, and that's why it must be guarded. No one warns you that the people who hurt you the most are often the ones you love the deepest. Not your enemies, not strangers. It's the ones you trust, the ones you would protect. With your last breath, they're the ones who often deliver the quietest, slowest destruction. Not because they always mean to. Sometimes it's ignorance. Sometimes it's selfishness. But more often than not, it's because they know you won't resist. You've made yourself available, emotionally open, unguarded. And in a world where strategy trumps sincerity that's not noble, it's dangerous. The brutal truth is this: the more affection you feel, the less clearly you see. Your emotions distort your perception. You start minimizing red flags, excusing behavior, overriding your instincts. You call it love, but what you're really doing is trading your judgment for comfort. You tell yourself they're just going through something, that they didn't mean it, that it'll pass. But deep down, something in your gut has already whispered what your heart refuses to hear. And every time you silence that voice, you betray yourself a little more. This is the kind of emotional blindness Machiavelli warned against, not in the context of romantic poetry, but of survival. He wasn't advocating cruelty. He was preaching lucidity. He knew that misplaced loyalty destroys kingdoms and misplaced compassion destroys individuals. When you care too much without boundaries, you hand over the controls of your mental and emotional world. And what you love, instead of making you stronger, becomes the very thing that breaks you. You think love means enduring everything, but love without clarity becomes delusion. When you don't allow yourself to see who someone truly is because of how you feel, you're no longer choosing love, you're trapped by it. That's not love. That's enslavement dressed as devotion. There's a moment every emotionally intelligent person must face, the moment you realize that caring deeply does not mean tolerating endlessly. That moment is the birth of your power. Not when you stop feeling, but when you stop letting those feelings override your discernment. Lucidity doesn't kill love, it purifies it. It asks, can I love you and still see you clearly? It protects you from giving your energy to people who have no intention of honoring it. It frees you from rewriting someone's actions just to keep the illusion alive. So ask yourself this: do you love them? Or do you just fear what it would mean to see them for who they really are? Because the more you love blindly, the more you lose yourself piece by piece, decision by decision, silence by silence. And that's the real tragedy. Not that they hurt you, but that you saw it coming and couldn't bear to look. Clarity over kindness. Because softness without boundaries is self-destruction. You were taught that kindness is a virtue, that being forgiving, patient, and endlessly understanding makes you a good person. But what no one told you is that when kindness has no spine, it becomes a silent invitation for chaos. When you give without discernment, when you forgive without change, when you stay silent just to keep the peace, you're not protecting love. You're sacrificing yourself at its altar. This is where clarity becomes more essential than compassion. You cannot heal what you refuse to confront. You cannot grow in a space where your kindness is used as currency by people who never intend to pay it back. And you cannot keep calling it love when it's simply fear. Fear of being seen as cold. Fear of being alone. Fear of conflict. But that fear, that's exactly what people who manipulate kindness rely on. Machiavelli understood this. He saw it in rulers who let pity guide their decisions and in doing so lost their kingdoms. He saw it in leaders who refused to punish, hoping virtue alone would inspire loyalty. But loyalty built on softness is a myth. The world doesn't reward those who give too much. It consumes them. And in your own life, the pattern is the same. You offer second chances to people who've already shown you their intentions. You keep forgiving, hoping they'll one day see the depth of your heart. You lower your boundaries until they become invisible, then wonder why people keep crossing them. It's not because you're weak. It's because you believed kindness alone would be enough. But without clarity, Kindness is not noble, it's naive. Clarity is the moment you look at someone not with hope, but with truth. It's the quiet decision to say, "This is who you are, and I will no longer pretend otherwise." That's not cruelty, that's sanity. Because the longer you protect others from the consequences of their behavior, the longer you postpone your own peace. There's a reason the people who hurt you keep coming back. They know your heart is wide open even when your spirit is bleeding. They know that all they have to do is say, "Sorry, not mean it, just say it." And you'll soften. Again. But what if the most loving thing you could do was stop? What if walking away wasn't rejection but redemption for both of you? Clarity says, "I can love you and still draw a line." It doesn't scream. It doesn't rage. It just no longer participates in the lie. Because kindness that costs you your truth is no longer kindness. It's quiet self-betrayal. And the moment you choose clarity over comfort, you don't lose your humanity. You reclaim your dignity. The need to be loved is the chain that keeps you powerless. You may believe the desire to be loved is human, and it is. But when that desire becomes a need, it turns into your most silent form of slavery. You start living not for truth, but for approval. You edit yourself to be accepted. You suppress your discomfort to maintain peace. You apologize for who you are just to be liked. And every time you do it, a piece of your authority dies, not in the eyes of others, but in your own soul. The need to be loved turns you into a shapeshifter, agreeable, polite, adaptable, but not powerful, not authentic. You say yes when your gut screams no. You forgive what should have ended. You explain yourself to people who only listen to find your weak spots. Why? Because you're terrified of rejection, of being alone, of being seen as the villain. Machiavelli warned that those who seek to be loved more than respected will always lose their power. The reason is simple: when love is your drug, the one who controls it controls you, and they know it. They sense that your fear of being unloved is greater than your desire for self-respect, so they withhold warmth when you speak your truth, and they offer affection when you conform. It's not love, it's leverage. This is why people back away the moment you assert yourself. Not because you're wrong, but because you're no longer easy to control. You've stopped offering blind agreement. You've stopped begging to belong. And in their eyes, that makes you dangerous. But in reality, it makes you free. Here's the bitter truth: as long as you need to be loved, you are not free to be honest. You are not free to walk away. You are not free to be disliked, even when that's exactly what your integrity requires. And if you're not free to be disliked, you'll always be someone else's puppet. True power begins when you no longer require emotional permission to be who you are. When you can say, "I love you, but I won't shrink for you." When you can walk away without resentment, just clarity. When you can choose silence over explanation, solitude over betrayal, self-respect over acceptance. Because needing to be loved by everyone means you'll be respected by no one. The people you admire, the ones who stand tall, speak plainly, live authentically, they earned that respect, not through charm, but through clarity, through the courage to be misunderstood. So here's your turning point. If love must cost you your truth, it's not love, it's a transaction. And you were never born to be for sale. Reclaim yourself. Love freely, but never from need, and never at the expense of your voice. When kindness has no boundaries, it becomes bait for predators. You've been taught to believe that kindness will protect you, that your pure heart, your willingness to forgive, your instinct to help others will one day be seen, appreciated, and honored. But the truth is far darker. In a world where emotional predators roam freely, kindness without boundaries doesn't make you safe. It paints a target on your back. People who manipulate, take, and destroy don't look for those who fight back. They look for those who can't. They're drawn to those who avoid conflict, who say yes when they want to say no, who give without asking for anything in return. They read your silence as permission. They read your compassion as weakness. And the moment they know you're incapable of walking away, they move in. This is not paranoia. It's human pattern. It's what Machiavelli understood when he warned that unchecked virtue can ruin a kingdom. Because when kindness is offered without awareness, when it flows toward everyone regardless of their actions, it blinds you to danger. It prevents you from seeing malice behind the smile, calculation behind the apology. You convince yourself that they didn't mean it, that maybe they're just broken, that if I give more, they'll change. But they don't change. They adapt. They manipulate the one weapon you don't even realize you're handing them: your endless goodwill. Look around. Are you still helping people who've repeatedly betrayed you? Are you still explaining yourself to those who've already made up their minds? Are you still sacrificing your time, your peace, your self-respect for those who wouldn't lift a finger if the roles were reversed? That's not love. That's self-abandonment. Being kind is a strength, but being kind without discernment is a silent form of self-erasure. It tells the world, you can treat me however you want. I won't leave. I won't protest. I'll still be here smiling. And predators love that. Real strength isn't in how much you can tolerate. It's in how clearly you can see. It's in your ability to say, no, this ends here. It's in refusing to let someone back in simply because they asked without changing anything. The world will not reward you for your sacrifices. It will consume them. And the longer you confuse being good with being passive, the longer you'll attract the very people who were never meant to have access to you in the first place. So set the boundary. Say the hard thing. Be kind, but be clear. Because those who deserve your kindness will see it even in your firmness. And those who don't, let them walk away confused. Let them face the wall they never saw coming. Because your heart isn't weak, it's sacred. And it's time you started treating it that way. When pity becomes a pattern, it becomes your weakest point. You were told that having pity makes you human, that to forgive, to empathize, to offer another chance is noble. But what if that very softness is what keeps you stuck? What if the pity you extend so freely isn't compassion at all, but fear dressed up in virtue? Fear of being seen as harsh. Fear of losing someone. Fear of drawing a line you can't take back. And so you hesitate, you minimize, you forgive again. Machiavelli understood the danger of unguarded pity. He watched rulers fall because they failed to impose consequences when it mattered. He warned that excessive clemency doesn't build loyalty, it breeds disorder. Because when you refuse to call a violation what it is, you're not being wise. You're leaving the door open for more harm. In your personal life, this looks like giving endless chances to someone who never changes. It's protecting someone from the consequences of their actions because you don't want to hurt them even as they hurt you. You think you're doing the right thing by choosing mercy over confrontation. But you're not just forgiving. You're cooperating in your own destruction. Pity without boundaries is not love, it's self-neglect. And people learn exactly what they can get away with by watching what you tolerate. If there's never a cost, never a pause, never a pushback, then why should they stop? Your silence becomes their comfort zone. Your leniency becomes their green light. You think they'll eventually change if you're just patient enough. But all they learn is that your love is unconditional, not in a beautiful poetic way, but in a way that makes you predictable and easy to manipulate. The truth is, you're not afraid of them getting worse. You're afraid of finally standing up. Because once you do, things will shift. Some people will leave. Some will rage. Some will paint you as cruel. And for someone whose identity has been tied to being the forgiving one, that feels like betrayal. But ask yourself this, what's more damaging? Losing people who are exploiting your pity or staying in situations that are quietly killing your spirit? You don't owe anyone unlimited access to you. You don't owe your silence to people who've broken your trust. Real love requires honesty. Real mercy requires boundaries. You can care about someone and still say, this behavior ends here. The people who deserve your heart will respect your lines. The ones who don't will call you heartless because your strength threatens the control they once had. So no, it's not your pity that needs to die. It's the illusion that pity alone can change people. The moment you stop tolerating the intolerable, you're no longer the victim of their behavior. You're the guardian of your own peace. And that, finally, is the power they never wanted you to reclaim. Love blinds you. And that's where betrayal begins. You think you'd see it coming. You believe that if someone were betraying you, you'd feel it in your gut, catch the signs, sense the shift. But here's the brutal truth: you don't, not because the signs aren't there, but because love makes you blind to them. You don't see the person in front of you. You see the version of them you want to believe in, the one you fell for, the one you keep hoping they'll return to. That illusion, not the betrayal, is what holds you hostage. The more you love, the deeper the illusion becomes. You justify the inconsistencies. You overlook the absences. You explain away the contradictions. And every time your intuition flares up, every moment of doubt, you shove it down. You tell yourself they're just tired, stressed, going through something. You convince yourself it's not betrayal. It's just a phase. But betrayal doesn't begin with the act. It begins with imbalance, when one person is giving while the other is calculating. It begins when your loyalty becomes a tool, not a gift. Machiavelli didn't claim that people are inherently evil. He said they are unstable, opportunistic. And when someone realizes you won't walk away no matter how many times they step over the line, they start playing the game differently. They push further, take more, offer less. You think love can fix it, that if you just show enough patience, enough understanding, they'll come around. But sometimes you're not trying to fix a relationship, you're trying to resuscitate a fantasy. And in doing so, you give your heart, your energy, your future to someone who's already made the decision to serve themselves first. That's what makes betrayal so cruel. It isn't just about what they did. It's about how long you silenced your truth to keep believing in them. And this is where your greatest danger lies, not in being betrayed, but in betraying yourself over and over just to delay the pain of seeing clearly. You think you're loyal, but loyalty without clarity isn't strength, it's surrender. It's handing your life to a person who's already shown you they can't carry it. Machiavelli's wisdom reminds us, never confuse past loyalty with future certainty. People change, intentions shift, and your duty is not to protect the bond, it's to protect your soul. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop lying to yourself. To say, this isn't who they used to be, and I won't pretend anymore. That's not cold, that's courageous. Because at the end of the day, it's better to stand alone in truth than be comforted by a lie that drains your strength. Love doesn't always save you. Sometimes it blinds you just long enough to destroy you, unless you decide to open your eyes. Respect isn't born from affection. It's built through boundaries. You want to be respected. You want your voice to matter, your presence to carry weight, your truth to stand firm in the eyes of others. But here's what no one tells you. You won't earn that respect by being agreeable. You won't be valued because you're nice or patient or endlessly forgiving. In fact, the more you seek to be liked, the more invisible you become. Respect does not follow affection. It follows firmness. You believe that if you give more love, more understand more, they'll finally appreciate you. But that's not how human nature works. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. Affection is fleeting, conditional, and easily manipulated. It's influenced by moods, by convenience, by emotion. But firmness, that's something people remember. That's what creates boundaries. That's what tells others where their control ends and yours begins. When you say, I don't tolerate that, and actually mean it, that's when people pay attention. Not when you explain it over and over. Not when you keep forgiving it because you understand. Respect is built when you draw a line once and never move it. It's not about raising your voice. It's about standing so still in your conviction that others feel the boundary without you having to defend it. Think about the people you respect most in your own life. It's not the ones who always said yes. It's the ones who said no without fear. The ones who didn't need to justify their standards because the way they lived was the justification. That's presence. That's power. You've been taught that setting limits makes you cold, that standing your ground means you're unkind. But let me be clear, kindness without firmness is just people-pleasing. And people-pleasing never earns real respect. It earns convenience. They keep you around because you're easy, not because you're valued. You may think that love and respect go hand in hand, but they don't not automatically. Love can make people feel close to you, but only boundaries make them value you. Because if you'll allow anything in the name of love, you'll be treated like you're worth nothing. There will be moments when standing your ground feels like risking everything. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel afraid. But in those moments, ask yourself, if someone leaves because I drew a boundary, were they ever really there for me, or just for what I gave? The truth is, every time you trade your standards for connection, you lose something deeper: self-respect. And without that, no one else will respect you either. You can love deeply and still demand respect. You can be kind and still walk away. And you can offer your heart, but only to those who meet you with equal strength. Because respect doesn't follow softness, it follows certainty. And once you live with that kind of inner clarity, you no longer beg for respect, you command it. Sometimes ruthlessness is the highest form of love. You've been told that love means staying. That love is gentle, accepting, forgiving, no matter the cost. And so you stayed when your soul was aching. You forgave what kept hurting. You gave more, even when you were already empty. Why? Because you thought leaving would make you heartless. Because walking away, drawing a line, or saying no more felt like betrayal. But here's the hard truth. What you called love was often fear. Fear of being misunderstood, of being the bad guy, of being seen as cruel. But what if ruthlessness isn't cruelty? What if, in some cases, it's the only act of real love left? Machiavelli understood this better than most. He saw that letting things fester in a kingdom or in the human heart leads not to peace, but to collapse. That mercy without discernment becomes complicity. That refusing to act when action is needed is not kindness, it's cowardice. And what's true for rulers is just as true for you. There are moments in life when the softest thing you can do is leave. When the most compassionate thing you can offer someone is the consequence of their own choices. When the deepest form of loyalty is not protecting someone from the fallout, but letting them finally feel it. That's not punishment. That's truth. And truth, real truth, is what love needs to survive. You think being ruthless means you've become cold. But the truth is, you only reached this point because you cared for too long, gave too much, and lost too many pieces of yourself in the process. You didn't become ruthless because you stopped loving you. Became ruthless because you finally started loving yourself enough to stop being broken for someone else. It's easy to stay and call it love. It's harder to leave and be misunderstood for it. But sometimes real love doesn't look like a gentle embrace, it looks like walking away without looking back. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving a point. It's about refusing to participate in the destruction of your own spirit. Because when you keep rescuing someone from their consequences, you rob them of their growth and you rob yourself of your peace. And in doing so, you turn love into a prison. There will come a time when your silence will no longer feel noble, but suffocating. When your presence will no longer feel healing, but hollow. That's when you know it's time. Not to hate, not to punish, but to step away. Ruthlessness, when born from clarity and self-respect, is not brutality. It's an act of sacred self-preservation. It's a decision that says, I will not be the accomplice to my own erosion. Because sometimes the most powerful way to love is to stop letting someone destroy you in the name of it. The hardest truth: you must protect your peace, even from the people you love. One of the most difficult lessons in life is realizing that not everyone who says they love you knows how to treat you with care. Sometimes it's not strangers who drain you, it's the people closest to you. You forgive them, explain their behavior, make excuses for their silence. Why? Because you're loyal, because you're kind, because you believe love means never giving up. But here's the truth: love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-erasure. When you constantly tolerate disrespect, betrayal, or manipulation in the name of understanding, you slowly abandon yourself. Your kindness becomes a trap. Your silence becomes consent. And your loyalty becomes a cage. The most powerful shift you can make is understanding that clarity is greater than kindness. that being ruthless isn't being cruel, it's choosing peace over chaos. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for both yourself and others is to walk away, to stop protecting people from the consequences of their actions, to stop trading your truth for temporary connection. Respect begins with self-respect. The people who truly love you will recognize your boundaries as strength, not rejection, the ones who don't let them go. You're not responsible for their growth, but you are responsible for your own. So from now on, don't confuse forgiveness with tolerance. Don't confuse sacrifice with love. And don't confuse silence with peace. You can care deeply and still say enough. You can love honestly and still choose distance. Because the deepest loyalty you'll ever have should be to your own clarity.